Here are your week 9 waiver wire ads at the quarterback position. First, Justin Herbert of the Chargers. He's had two solid games in a row. And remember, just 2 years ago, he was considered a top 5 quarterback. He's mushing together with that young wide receiving course. They should continue to get better and better. Next, we have Tua T, Miami Dolphins. It'll be his second game back from that concussion, so he should have shook off a lot of that rust. And it's an important division game against the Bills, and I look for it to be a shootout and put up points. Next, on to Kirk Cousins, Atlanta Falcons. How is this guy still available? He's available in 40% of leagues. He plays the Cowboys, which is a smash start. So if he's out there on the waiver wire, definitely add Kirk Cousins. And finally, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's actually put up four decent games in a row, a few of them really good. And last week he did it against a great Green Bay Packers defense.
Hey guys, how's it going? Here are some players that you should pick up at wide receiver for week 9 in fantasy football. First off, if Cedric Tillman is still available in your league, you should prioritize getting him on your roster this week. I like bidding 15 to 20% of your fab budget for Tillman, as his fantasy value has skyrocketed because Jameis Winston makes the Browns look like a functional NFL offense. Tillman added his first two career touchdowns on Sunday, and he has the talent to be fantasy relevant for the rest of the season. Next up, I'm adding Darius Slayton. 5 to 10% of your fab budget is probably a safe gamble on Slayton. He's been in double digit fantasy points in 3 out of his last 4 games and is emerging as Daniel Jones' preferred second option in the Giants' passing game. And lastly, I'm going with another Browns receiver in Elijah Moore. Moore had his best game as a Brown on Sunday, bringing in 8 catches for 85 yards on 12 targets, and you can likely add him without a bid.
Week 9 waiver wire pickups at the running back position. We're looking for priority number 1, Tyrone Tracy. That's our guy. Listen, we weren't sure when with Devin Singletary coming back if this was going to be a running back by committee or if Devin Singletary was just going to come back and take the starting role over. Well, they're in the third quarter right now while I'm recording this. And hey, Singletary's got 1 carry, and Tyrone Tracy is dominating. He is approaching double-digit carries right now. This is probably due to the fact that he's a more explosive runner. He's better catching, so he seems to be the guy, at least for this next few weeks going forward. I suggest you play Tracy and maybe Singletary takes a back seat. Next two players, these guys are kind of contingent. They're good backup players. They do have some standalone value, but these guys could even skyrocket even more. We're looking at Braylon Allen of the New York Jets and Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons, both roughly 63% available in Yahoo leagues. Braylon Allen, he scored a touchdown on a goal line situation this past week. So, hey, he's got some possible goal line work coming up, and if Breece Hall goes down, he's the man. Also, like I said, Tyler Algier, all it takes is one injury to Bijan, and his value is going to skyrocket. Yeah, he had a poor performance this past week, so he may fly under the radar a little bit. Keep an eye on him. Maybe pick him up as a free agent so you don't have to waste a waiver spot. But if you have the spot, I suggest putting in a waiver for him. We're going to stash once more. Stash Kamani Vidal of the Los Angeles Chargers. Week 8, he only had 6 carries. But like I said, stash him if you can, because if anything happens to Dobbins, he's kind of a glass house. If anything happens to Dobbins, Vidal's going to step up. And hold off on Isaac Guerrero of the 49ers. Listen, I know he had a great week 8, 14 carries, 85 yards, and the touchdowns. But the 49ers have a bye in week 9, which will give Mason some time to heal up. And they're also planning to start unleashing McCaffrey in week 10. It's not going to be a full load for McCaffrey come week 10, but that's when he's going to start getting worked back in. So Guerrendo's going to be back to that RB3 on the team. That's what we got for you guys for running backs this week.
These are some tight ends I think you should be targeting on the waiver wire for week 9. First off, I have Zach Ertz. He's had 5 or more targets in each of the last 4 weeks, and he saw 11 in week 8. This is probably the last chance to move on Ertz, who looks like he can be a tight end 1 moving forward the rest of the season. If you're in need of a tight end, he could be the missing piece for your team. I also like Will Disley. He didn't have a huge game in week 8, but he's averaging 9 targets per game over the last 2 games. If he can keep that kind of volume, he should have a high weekly floor at a position where guys with high floors have been hard to come by. And Adam Troutman is the guy who's coming off the monster game with his incredible highlight reel one-handed touchdown grab Troutman could start getting more work in the Broncos offense that is starting to look good. He has a decent schedule over the next couple of games and is definitely worth stashing as a tight end too for the time being.
Okay, quick little fantasy football debate. Should the Browns be tanking? I'm all for them tanking. The Browns depleted a ton of young talent when they traded for Watson. Next, Jameis Winston. He is only on a 1 year contract, and with Watson's contract, you cannot carry a second huge quarterback contract. So even if Jameis does well, they would not be able to pay him. Finally, the Browns' O line is depleted. Nick Chubb looks like he's coming off two major knee surgeries, and he's about to turn 29 in a month. They just traded Cooper, so at this point, they need to be looking to restart that team.
Logically, I get what you're saying, Josh. But first of all, I hate the idea of tanking. Tanking creates a bad culture in an organization, and in a league where job security is fickle, you should always give it your all to win, even if you have to defy great odds. And for those reasons, I do not believe the Browns should be tanking. Jameis Winston is coming off one of the greatest performances for a Browns quarterback in their franchise history. He was a former first overall pick, and the Browns should see if they have found a franchise quarterback in Winston. Flacco created some magic for them last season, and maybe Winston and this tough Browns team can find the magic again.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
Okay, hot takes. This one's gonna suck for me. It's about the World Series. You can see the Yankees just do not have enough bats to keep up with the Dodgers, and Cashman did not do a good job building a strong bullpen to compete in October. And this come back to bite us, unfortunately. And I see the Yankees not going out and spending to come back and win next year. For the Dodgers, they are in a great spot to continue this strong playoff run that they've had for the past 5 plus years. They paid all the right players. Plus, this year they're doing it with no starting pitching, which is just nuts. So, congratulations, Dodgers, unless the Yankees are second team to make a crazy comeback. But that's why I think the Yankees are going to struggle to come back and win the World Series and be back there again in the future.
We got some hot takes, some heat coming out of the city of Chicago. No, it's not the White Sox. No, it's not the Bears, who just embarrassingly lost to the Commanders over the weekend. No, it's not the Cubs. It's not the Blackhawks. I'm talking about the Bulls, baby. The NBA is back in session. And guess who's back? After almost 2 year absence, Lonzo Ball, baby. That's just what the Bulls needed. Lonzo Ball is going to propel this team to a playoff team. And I'm not talking about a ninth or a 10th or an eighth seed. I'm expecting them to finish seventh seed or higher. I know it's been a rough last couple years. We've had a lot of talent on the team. They just haven't been cohesive. Lonzo Ball, he brings that defensive presence, which we saw before his injury. Him and Caruso were one of the best defensive backcourts. So Lonzo Ball bringing back that defensive energy. The Bulls have the offense that can do it. They're going to be a fun team to watch, and they're going to be in the playoffs.
In the modern NFL, elite linebackers are criminally underrated. Elite linebackers have never been more important as they're asked to play coverage, stop the run, and rush the passer at times. Yet teams rarely spend high draft capital on elite linebackers. With the modern prototype quarterback becoming more mobile, it has become more important than ever to have speedy linebackers who can fly around the field and make plays. I think the teams that figure this out and invest in the linebacker position will give their franchises better chances to win games and ultimately win Super Bowls.
My hot take for the week is that you should be buying up the Cleveland Browns offense in fantasy football as long as Jameis Winston is the starting quarterback. Winston threw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns in his Browns debut and injected life back into a dejected team. David Njoku will be a top 5 tight end for the rest of the season, and wide receivers Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman will definitely provide value as flex options. That's because Winston likes to take chances and push the ball downfield. It won't be perfect, as Jameis is prone to make mistakes with turnovers, but there are opportunities to buy low on a lot of the players on the Browns offense, and I think fantasy owners would be wise to take a chance on the Browns.
This was a poker hand I played at 1-2 stakes, and in this hand, the straddle was on. The action folded to me in the big blind, and I raised to $20 with 10-9 offsuit, and the straddler made the call. The flop came 10-8-4 with two clubs. I choose a check at strong hand here, as this player seemed like he would be bluffing a lot if I gave him the chance to. He does end up betting here for $20, and I make the call. The turn comes the six of spades, so I pick up a gutter. I check again, and this time he bets for $20, so he makes the same bet, and I should probably be good here all the time and be raising when he chooses this size, but I miss the raise and I make the call. And we go to a river, which is kind of bad for us. It's the ace of spades, so if he did have the nut flush draw, he does make top pair here. So I check it, and when he checks it back, we are good versus 9-8 offsuit. This is another poker hand I played from the same session. In this hand, two players limped, and I raised on the button with 8-7 offsuit to $15. The small blind and the limpers made the call. We go to a beautiful flop that comes 4-5-6 with two diamonds. We flop the nuts, and when it checks to me, I bet for $20, and both of the limpers make the call. The turn is a disaster. It is the ace of diamonds, so one of these players probably made a flush. When it checks to me, I'm happy to just check it back here. The river comes the seven of clubs, counterfeiting us even more. And now the first limper bets for 50 and next to act calls. And here's where the power of the position helps us save some money. When the action goes like this, I'm chopping at best, but most likely I'm losing. So I make the fold. The first limper turns over an 8 for a straight, and the caller has jack 9 of diamonds for a flush that didn't raise. We lose, but we find a decent fold here.
Playing 1-2 at Windstar, and we look down at King Jack from the button, and we raise to $8. We get four callers, and a few of them are on the tighter side, so we keep that in mind and we go to the flop. The flop is the ace of hearts, the three of spades, the seven of clubs. Checks to me, and I check. The turn is the king of diamonds. Checks to me again. Now I'm thinking checks to twice, I might be good, so I bet $27. When the tight player from the low jack calls, I know he's slow playing an ace and hope that C bet the flop. So the river comes the three of diamonds. The low jack checks again, and I check back. He shows ace ten of spades, so I'm very glad that I checked back and I only bet the turn, and that's something to keep in mind when you're playing 10 players. A lot of times they're always expecting you to C bet. Okay, on to our next hand at Windstar. Still playing 1-2, and we look down at 9-7 of hearts from middle position. I bet $11 and get four callers, so we go to the flop. Flop is the jack of clubs, the eight of hearts, and the six of spades. We like being double gutted, so I bet $23 and we get two callers. The turn, beautiful, it is the five of clubs. Now we bet $61 and get both callers. So wondering, thinking one's on top pair to the flush draw. The river is the queen of hearts. Now the big blind goes all in for 119. We call the hijack folds and we charge straight, and they showed that they rivered top two pair. So very happy that they called along and that the flush didn't come. Nice win.
Soccer hooligans.
Welcome back to the Added Minutes, ladies and gentlemen, with me, Jordan Tennis. Listen, guys, Manchester United, they're in turmoil. They fired their head coach, Eric Ten Hag. Thanks a lot to West Ham for beating them. Everybody was having fun beating up on them. You just had to get your licks in too, huh? Well, we don't appreciate that because Chelsea was looking forward to beating them under Eric Ten Hag. Now, Ruud, the goal machine, Van Nistelrooy steps up as interim manager for Manchester United. We'll see how he does. They can't do much worse. They have 4 wins out of 12 games in all competitions this season, so it hasn't been the most exciting season for Manchester United fans. They sit 14th right now in the Premier League, so a lot of people would say it warranted the sacking of Eric Ten Hag. The possible replacements we're looking at for him is Thomas Frank, who is Brentford's manager, but the only issue with him is he's locked up until 2027. Last summer, he was the favorite to take over, the betting favorite to take over the job at Manchester United, but Manchester United doubled down. They said that they believed in Eric Ten Hag and that they were going to stick by him. Well, they stuck by him for a couple months because, as we see, he's gone. Another possible replacement was Ruben Amorim of Sporting. And listen, this is a guy that a lot of people love. He has a smaller release clause than Thomas Frank does, that's for sure. But this guy's a genius. He's known for working with the younger players, promoting academy players to the senior teams, and this seems like a good guy for any top club. So I really hope that he doesn't go to Manchester United. I really hope it's somebody else. Somebody like Gareth Southgate, who is also available, the ex-England manager who was fired for his underwhelming performances with one of the most stacked teams in international football. Well, he's available, but he says he's done until next summer. We'll see if maybe Man United can pull out their big wallet and flash some cash and pull him out of retirement. I know their owner's a big fan of him, so we'll have to see who they end up scooping. Who do you guys think that Manchester United will pick up as their next manager? Let us know in the comments, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, here's some fool's gold fantasy football players to avoid. First up, we have Calvin Austin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a wide receiver. Just had a fantastic game, but if you take out his 2 boom games, he's super inconsistent. You can't trust him, and he's been averaging less than 2 points per game. Next, we have Adam Troutman. He's a tight end on the Denver Broncos. Before this last game, which again was our blow-up game, he's averaging less than 1 point per game. So those are 2 fool's gold players to avoid. Okay, it's that time of year to talk a little bit of fantasy basketball. Here's 2 players you should add off the waiver wire. First, Julian Champagne of the San Antonio Spurs. He plays small forward and power forward. He's available in 80% of leagues. Greg Popovich saw enough of him to give him a multi-year contract extension, and he's been coming on strong in the last few years. So far, this young season, he's averaged making 3 3-pointers a game, 15 points, 6.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and 1 steal, and he's from St. John's. Next, we have Andrew Wiggins, Golden State Warriors. All right, set positions, small forward and power forward, available in 48% of leagues. He's been there before. He's also been a part of that championship team. He's been averaging 3.73 pointers made per game, so that's fantastic. 19.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 2.3 assists, along with a block. So those are 2 players to consider adding. Okay, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you haven't yet, please take a moment, hit that like, comment, subscribe. And if you do not know yet, on Saturdays we are dropping our start sits for the week. So check that out to make sure that you're watching, seeing the players you should be starting and sitting for fantasy football. And at 11 a.m. Central Time, we go live to kind of give you the best updates of what's going on for fantasy football. So check that out. We have our store. Go there, get some DGL merch, and have a great week.